See how actual business owners are using AI to save money and time. AI on the Ground with Jeanette Stein.
Well, hello, everybody. I am so excited to be here with Carrie Carlson, the co-founder of Leadtail Marketing Agency. And we are just going to jump into a fantastic conversation. Carrie, do you mind taking a minute and just introducing yourself to everybody here?
Sure. My name is Carrie Carlson. As Jeanette mentioned, I am the co-founder here at Leadtail. I look after all the operational side of the house. My co-founder looks after sort of we call it the outbound community, the external community, and I look after the internal community, which is all of our team and sort of by extension, our clients and the underlying operations.
Well, that's fantastic. I did some snooping on your website. Do you mind sharing with our audience all of the good things that you provide?
Sure.
You've got a lot going on. It's
We,
exciting.
we take kind of a broad view. So we do specialize exclusively in B2B social media, but we take a pretty broad view of what sits under that umbrella. So all of our engagements start with social insights research. So as a social agency, we do some audience research. But we really do that through the lens of what different buyer groups are doing on social. So rather than just a broad-based persona approach, we sort of say, okay, you want to look at, if you sell to the CIO, let's look at what CIOs are doing on social. So let's find people who say they're CIOs. Let's sort of use a combination of off-the-shelf tools and some tools we've built for this purpose to pull in information about just exactly what are they doing and where are they doing it? What are they sharing? Who are they talking to and about? What kinds of, are they engaging with podcasts? Are they engaging with YouTube channels? And if so, who are the people who sort of own those channels or run those channels? So we're really looking at it as the basis of thinking about not only what are we going to publish for the client, themes and topics, what's going out on the feed, but also thinking about that engagement level. So who else are we going to be monitoring and looking for opportunities to engage with? That might be influencers, it might be analysts, it might be customers, it might be any number, it might be prospects. So it sort of depends on the business. And then we also layer in some social listening. We're a Sprout Social Platinum partner. So we use the social listening component of that to set up more topical listening. So once we've identified CIOs on social care a lot about cybersecurity, for example, then we go, great, what are the cybersecurity topics that are relevant for this client, and set up some social listening to get more insights. So that's sort of the beginning of our process, is everything sort of starts with who is it you're trying to reach, because it's not a broad-based thing for everyone in a B2B environment. You are trying to reach a certain audience. Beyond that, we do sort of strategy and day-to-day execution, and we think about that in a couple different buckets. So there's the feed, like we talked about, but there's also campaigns, and we sort of see more B2B businesses taking a more campaign-oriented approach over the last couple years, both because they want more bang for the buck for each social post they're doing, but also they want to engage more in brand building and making sure that as a potential customer or an existing customer, you encounter their social posts, over time, it's building an impression in your mind. It's not just a random thing here and a random thing there. It's adding up to creating an impression in your mind, which again, in a long-term considered sales environment like B2B, that's an important element for our clients. We also do influencer marketing, paid social. We support account-based marketing programs, and I'm always missing one, but that's a pretty good employee advocacy, which then sort of is both mobilizing employees to help amplify and share sort of brand content or messages. And more recently, what we're really seeing is a shift towards executive social. And again, this is something that we have been sort of encouraging in our clients for a long time, and we'd get a maybe next quarter, or it sounds good, but it's not a priority. In the last 12 months, I would say it's come up in almost every inbound sales call. How can you support our executives? How can we make our executives more visible on social? Can you help with that? To what degree? So that's kind of a broad view of, again, we think about social as a lot more than just what's going on LinkedIn on any given day.
Yeah, that's fantastic. It caught my attention what you said at the very end, because I'm seeing a shift,
Mm,
as AI comes in and automation comes in. It's like, how
mm.
do I help people know my people and trust my people?
It's the
And it
main
makes sense that you're
differentiator.
saying that. you know?
Yeah. I mean, when you have, and we're kind of in the throes, just, this will ultimately date this interview at some point in the not terribly
Yeah.
distant future. But, we're at the point of the curve now where people are saying kind of frankly crazy things like, well, if I see an M dash, I know that it's AI generated content and I'm not going to consume it. Like, that's silly. That's like saying I'm not going to read this report because they may have used Google to research. Like it's just silliness. Like we're having a real extreme reaction in some quarters to the AI content. It'll work itself out here over time, but I do think just, the one thing you can do at this point to lend that sort of human touch to your brand, to diminish any sense that you might be sort of doing too much AI for the comfort level of your audience, is get your people out in front. About every quarter, we look across the entire client set at sort of the top 100 social media posts. Consistently 97, 98, 99 of those top 100 posts feature photos and videos of people on the team, whether they're at events or doing community service events or, any of that kind of, even if it's just, photos of people's pets that they submitted for, National Adopt a Puppy, like anything that has to do with people, even if it's a terrible shot of your team in the booth at an event, it will still do better most of the time than something that's really just direct response oriented. So we try to sort of bring the human element forward as much as possible while still looking for those efficiencies by bringing AI into our workflows and thinking really cautiously about like, where do we want to open it up and run as fast as we can with it without it influencing or impacting our clients. And sort of when we bring it to the client side, we want to be really thoughtful and make sure we're bringing clients along on that journey with us.
Yeah. So do you mind sharing without giving your insider secrets? How are you using AI to make some of these things easier for you and your team?
I started sometime last year. Like many of us, I was like, I don't know, is this AI thing gonna is it gonna blow up and fizzle, or is it gonna be a thing I have to really get on board with? And so when we sort of crossed that threshold for me where I'm like, okay, this is a thing, like regardless of how I might personally feel about it as a business owner, I have to think about what this means for us. And so I've been at it for about a year, just sort of experimenting and carving out time for myself as a leader to go and essentially run out ahead of the team and start climbing the curve, knowing that I'm going to have to start bringing them in behind me before I reach the summit. So I started playing around with Gemini. I started playing around with Claude. I started playing around with ChatGPT. Pretty quickly sort of realized, oh, there's a couple sort of plateaus in the learning curve. But one of the things we did first off this year was have everyone on the team do a formal prompting essentials course through Coursera. It was a Google created course. I think it cost $49 per person. So it was like a very modest investment in taking the whole team. And it was, our writers, our graphic designers, our operations coordinator, all of our account managers, and essentially raising the floor. So rather than going like, how do I just automate something right out of the gate? How do I go from 0 to 60? I was like, how do we just keep raising the floor so that everybody is working from a basis that as we start to break out and do more interesting things or more complex things, we're not leaving anyone behind. We want everybody to sort of come along and have a basic level. From that, what we've started doing to that point of thinking about, well, now where do we apply this? Now that we all know enough to be dangerous, where do we start pointing this energy?
Right? All of
Classic,
a sudden
right?
it's like, ooh.
I don't want to be like, "Yeah, go forth and do whatever you want." Like, oh, no, no, no. But what we looked at were what are some internal areas where either we can't do something that we know we need to be doing, or it's really laborious. Like, what can we do first? And so we made a couple little quick things like our own meeting analyzer. So we can take our Zoom transcripts and plug it into that. And then through a series of, fairly direct, like fairly simple prompts, pull out what are the immediate action items, what are the longer term action items that were discussed, what were any opportunities to maybe do a campaign or some additional research that came up. And then part of what we wanted to get was more one-to-one coaching for our account managers, but there's only one of me.
Uh-huh.
There's, 8 or 9 or 10 of them. And so the prompts actually go through and do a little bit of customized coaching on call management. So it pulls out how many questions were asked, sort of what kinds of questions were they? Were they open-ended? Were they exploratory? Were they just, can you see my screen? And then sort of coaches the account manager on opportunities to ask, deeper, more thought-provoking questions, and then also gives them any other sort of general coaching on, time management, agenda management, etc. So that was sort of the first thing, and that doesn't seem like it would be the top priority, but it's one of those, again, just raising the floor and making sure that everybody now has access to some customized, personalized coaching about how they're doing one of the main functions of their job.
I love it, Carrie. That's so smart. You did a few. I'm going to interrupt you because there's a couple of pieces of gold in here.
Okay.
First of all, knowing how to prompt before you go automate everything, knowing what to expect from the AI before you go like hoping to automate
It's
things that
so
are going to,
easy. You see, like you said, the TikTok videos, you see the promotional videos for the tools, and you're like, oh,
right,
so in an hour, I should have a whole business that makes $1 million. And you're like, no,
right.
no,
No, no, no. Right? Like it's like learning how how to prompt it, what to say to get what you need back. I also find that it has helped a lot of my clients be better communicators because
for
they're like,
sure.
oh, my assistant is awful. And I'm like, well, let's put the directions you just gave to that assistant in a chat GPT and see what you get.
Yeah.
And they were like,
Yeah.
shoot, like, isn't that
Like,
interesting? Like, oh, maybe it's not my assistant, maybe it's me. But learning how to prompt, I've seen has really helped some of my leaders become better communicators and therefore leaders, right?
yes. Yes.
I know people are
It's,
like,
it's
"Oh,
so
prompting,
surprising.
that's gonna make you dumb down." And I'm like, "That's not what I'm seeing, actually."
That's so insightful. And that's really when I talk about those plateaus or those sort of milestones on the learning curve, that's one of them, I think. One of them is when you realize first you're like, oh, this is interesting. And you're like, haha, write a poem, write a song, make a funny picture, and you just play a little bit. And that's okay. But once you realize, like, okay, there's a little structure here, you sort of get the spike of, okay, let me go automate everything. You realize you're going to run into a brick wall, and you kind of come back and start finding your way. And I also was surprised. Some of the surprising things that came out of that were I found that even maybe my staff who were a little resistant to coaching one-on-one, face-to-face, made a lot of use out of these coaching, just being able to have it in a private setting where they're not necessarily, they don't have to share it with anybody. They can ask any questions, has really helped. And they've also learned to, watching how everybody sort of takes the next step, they've also learned how to use prompting to iterate and say, instead of how I handled this, how might I handle that scenario on a call in the future? And really start to have more of, like you said, more of a dialogue and really improve their own communication skills. I found it's really made people less defensive to feedback. It's made them more open to maybe there's another way to communicate this thing I'm trying to say rather than having to be defensive.
That's the other thing I was gonna say is, like, giving feedback to employees using
Hmm.
maybe a custom GPT or a custom tool you made, and they have a different name in all the platforms, but they're the same, right?
Hmm.
Is opens them up because it's not coming from Carrie, the co-founder. It's
Right. Yeah,
anonymous.
it's not getting coached by the boss and having the boss tell you, critique your work, which is gives one sense. It's, looking at something I have done and getting more of an objective third party view, and then they're able to sort of decide what to take and what to leave.
I've seen the same effect happen with clients, like offering creating a tool that does like a social media audit because
Interesting.
you're not telling them negative things.
Ah,
The bot is telling them maybe not so wonderful things or giving them a grade, being more objective, and then they come to you for the solution.
oh,
And
that's very
so they'll
interesting.
hear, yes. And so I've been creating, it's been so fun. I've been creating some lead magnets that are like quizzes that are actual chatbots. Go right on your
Hmm.
website. And then if they want more information, they can put in their email or their phone, however they want to be
Right.
talked to you. But it gives them a safe way to get without feeling so, naked in front of the camera
For
per
sure.
se, right?
For
It's been really interesting to see. Some of my clients have had a huge amount of success with that, but it's the same thing. It decreases that feeling of a human is judging me.
Right. And it just, I was as surprised as anyone. I really, I took that tact after my own experimentation where I found that, my classic scenario is I think I'm 99% done with something. And then I show it to my partner and I say, hey, can you take a quick look at this? And he basically tears it down to the studs and tells me that I came at it in the completely wrong way, which was an exceedingly frustrating experience. But if I am sort of dumping my thoughts into one of these tools, letting it summarize them and spitting out a document, and I send it to him and he does the same thing, like personal experience. I'm like, okay, I didn't write it. That's fine. Even though it's all my input, it's like just there's something about that level of remove that allows people to receive that feedback in a different way.
Yeah, absolutely. That's exciting. Where do you see it going next for you and your company?
Well, I'll tell you, there's one little gem I want to make sure I share because someone shared it with me and it was super helpful, which is just at the highest, 30,000-foot level. If you think about what do you have lying around that is a good candidate for AI in terms of support, automation, workflow, agents, whatever your angle is. A colleague, Christina Elwood, told me this acronym WINS. So if it's words, images, numbers, or sounds, these are all really good candidates for things that the AI can deal with pretty readily and pretty reliably. So if you work with those kinds of inputs, and so initially I thought, well, gosh, how much stuff could that be? And then I sort of had the moment of, oh my gosh, that's almost everything. Almost everything we do as a marketing, a B2B social media marketing agency is words, images, numbers, and sounds. And so being able to just have some kind of bound on where should I go looking for good candidates to apply AI was incredibly helpful because again, that sort of initial mind-blowing experience of, oh my gosh, it can do everything, it can do anything, and there are endless possibilities, matched with running into the brick wall of reality and going, okay, maybe that's true, but it's not a one-step process. I found that framework, the WINS framework, was really helpful for me to think, well, where should I be looking for good opportunities?
That the other framework I help people understand, or the box that I put it in, is can you help me understand what you actually want from the output?
Mm,
You don't necessarily, as the human, need to know exactly how to get to the output, but if you don't even know the destination, you
yeah.
can't expect the train to get there. Like, we're not to a spot where the AI is smarter than us yet. I don't know. I say that a little nervous, but yet.
It's not smarter than you about the things you're very smart about. I think that's what I've encountered is, if I ask it about a topic where I don't really know a lot, then I'm like, wow, this AI is super smart and knows a lot about this topic. If I ask it about a topic that I know a lot about, when I start to read through it, I'm like, that's not exactly how that works. Or like, you're missing kind of a critical angle here. So I think, to your point, it's how you apply it. It's not going to be better than you at the things you're really good at right out of the box. You have to teach it to do all the things just like you had to learn to do those things really well. But if you're like, I need to learn about a new thing really quickly, just enough to do the task in front of me, fantastic tool.
Fantastic.
Really
Yeah.
taking away again all the versions of that defensiveness or aversion to asking questions that sort of slow people down or keep them sort of stuck at a certain level. If nothing else happened, but the interactions with the chat tools dissolved some of that for folks, I think it's really going to open up some career paths and some growth paths for folks who are truly sort of limited if they're not able to get around that feeling of not being able to ask questions or make mistakes or get feedback. This is a really safe way to do that, even on your own. You don't even have to tell anybody that you're doing it necessarily. I think it's just good for an individual contributor to have sort of an outlet there that they can work with in that way.
So true. I love it. I mean, the former teacher in me gets excited about that stuff too, but we'll stay on track, right?
You
Like, I
can
could
tell I
totally
look
take a
after the people and the tools, right? And like of the two, I want to always make sure I'm at least 51% in favor of the people. But that's where I have found, given how I like to lead, how I structure my team, I have found that looking at the relationship between the people and the tools and how can these AI tools sort of smooth that over, help people climb the curve more easily, grease the skids in the areas where maybe they struggle or have, again, concerns or habits that might actually be limiting them in their growth. I want to give them a way to work through that, even if it can't be my own time one-to-one on a consistent basis.
Right, you're offering support. One of the big things when I'm building tools, it's like, how can I create an AI tool that makes the one-on-one time you do get
Mm,
more helpful, more like I work with a lot of coaches, a lot of people like you with agencies, and it's so fun to go, okay, how do we create an AI tool that makes the time you do get with your clients more
yes,
effective, more
that's right.
fun, more about relationship, not, hey, do you have that image? Let me sit here and wait for you to go
Right.
find it, right? Or whatever you need for social media, right? Like there's so many of them.
Well, I mean, if you can move your meeting from a status meeting to a meeting that has more value for the client, you've already done really, a significant thing for your retention, for your client satisfaction, and just for how much fun it is to do your job. You didn't get into whatever job you're in to harass people via Slack and email for an image here and a document there. We all got into doing this for something a little bit more grand than that. And so whenever I see something is trended down to just sort of a status update, that's a red flag for me. And so hopefully the way that I view the tools that we've built so far is that there's potential at some point for me to level that up and essentially aggregate what the team is doing individually and feed everything into sort of a red flag dashboard for me as the operations manager, where I don't need to necessarily be privy to every single call summary. But if something sort of ticks too many red flags, it pops up a flare so that I know to just check in with that person and see what's going on and have a conversation. And so, again, I'm trying to think about sort of building things that work at the individual level, at the team level, and that ladder up so that they actually become the infrastructure for the organization going forward.
Using AI to give you the visibility so you can actually spend your time not crunching the numbers or moving numbers, but actually know who you need to be and spending time with the people that are important to spend time with.
Right. That's
That's the
I want
goal.
to improve the quality of that time for sure.
Yes, and the job satisfaction. I love that you talked about job satisfaction. I'm seeing like
Important.
my very first gentleman who hired me, he's like, I'm gonna lose my assistants. I've got two. They're high end. They just graduated from college. They want higher level work, but I still need this simple stuff done. And I'm like, why don't we automate it so they can be revenue generating employees? You believe in them, and that was my very first, like we
Perfect.
streamlined that onboarding. We gave them higher level tasks to do, and he was able to keep them. And he was just so excited. He's like, I had no idea this stuff could be automated. But with AI, boy, it changes what can be done.
Yeah.
It's pretty
That's
exciting.
I think,
Yeah.
yeah, thematically from this discussion, it's really, you can change, you can't make more time with it, but you can really improve the value of the time that you get to spend either with clients or with teammates or with customers. Just, you can use your time differently is probably that first major milestone of, is this AI project tool succeeding for me? Are
Yeah.
you able to buy back some of your time and do something that's more valuable to you, more valuable to the business than how you were spending the time before?
Yeah. This is really exciting. Have you played with ChatGPT agents?
I have started playing with agents. I started playing with a tool called N8N, which
Yes,
has
so
a
good.
drag and drop interface. I found it to be really, it looks very complicated and intimidating, but it's actually very helpful, very step by step, lots of really good inline documentation where it'll say, oh, you want to connect to Slack? Okay, here's the step by step instructions for how to connect Slack. And now here are the things you can do now that you've done that. So I think we have definite workflows where
Mhm.
agents or even just stringing together multiple sort of sequences of chats or of AI inputs and outputs. None of it is sort of production yet. But that's sort of the edge of where we're starting to play now is like, okay, as people get comfortable with one-off sets of prompts to accomplish one task, how do we sort of do that task, take the output of it, feed it into another one? And I think that will give the team the mental model for how agents work. Because I think there's so much noise and hype and it's a big sort of conceptual thing. So rather than just throw them into that deep end, it was like, let's just, again, building blocks. We all get prompting. We all sort of have a common language there. Now we want to go, the thing that comes out of one goes into the next. Okay, now this one needs to fork depending on the output. Okay, now we have a decision point, so we need to send it to a decider that figures out which thing happens next. And, the other part is I'm not in a rush. I want to make sure we're keeping pace, but I also want to, first and foremost, got to take care of our clients, and people have to take care of themselves. And so we're really trying to think about, internally, you got a project, you got an idea, go nuts, like try it out, bounce it off each other. If it's, when something works, the team lets each other know. More structured things I want to achieve for the business, I try to put on a plan to let's build the skill set we're going to need so that when this thing is delivered or in place, I'm not the only one who knows how it works or what it's for.
I love
And
it.
that's because I've done that before, and I don't want to do it like that this time.
Oh
Lesson.
my goodness. Carrie, thank you so much for your time. I know you need to run. I could talk to you all day. I
I was gonna
really
say, I'm
enjoy
happy to
it.
talk to you again as you go through your interviews, and sort of find your groove and go, this is the emerging area where it seems to be centered. I'm happy to regroup and talk again and do another session if you would find that valuable. So
Well, that would be fantastic, Carrie. I will definitely reach out and I'll let you know when this is going live.
wonderful. I love it.
Save money and time with Stein Solutions. Book your first call today.